Hello students. So in this video lecture we are going to discuss about some more examples on specialty polymers. Okay, so specialty polymers are those type of polymers which are used for specialized applications. Okay, where it is applications in industries or for large scale multi productive applications. So in this lecture we are going to discuss about polyurethanes and spandex. Okay, so spandex is also a kind of polyurethane. It is a kind of specialized polyurethane. So the sequence of discussion will begin from polyurethane and then it will go towards spandex. Okay, so first we will try to introduce the topic, that is polyurethane. Okay, so polyurethanes are basically one of the large classes of polymers with properties that can be tailored over a wide range for a large number of applications. Okay, so basically polyurethanes are having excellent properties, whether physical or chemical, and it can be used for large number of applications. Now polyurethanes can be thermosetting or they can be thermoplastic. Okay, thermosetting polymers are those polymers which are having cross links between two linear chains. Okay, and thermoplastics are kind of straight chain polymers. Okay, so thermosetting polymers are having high melting point and low glass transition temperature as compared to thermoplastics. Okay, now these polyurethanes may also be rigid and hard or flexible and soft, right? So rigid and hard basically means what? It basically means that it is having a high glass transition temperature, and flexible and soft basically means that it is having a low glass transition temperature, right? So when the glass transition temperature is less, so normally, sorry, it is vice versa. So when we say it is rigid and hard, it means that glass transition temperature is less, and when it is flexible and soft, the glass transition temperature is greater, right? Now, how these polyurethanes are being formed? That is the big question. So, these are basically formed from the reaction of an organic diisocyanate with a diol compound. It's okay. So, diisocyanate means what? So, there is an isocyanate on the both side of the chain which reacts with a diol compound, right? Diol means there are two alcoholic groups on the same compound. So when these react together, it leads to the formation of urethane linkage. Okay, so you could see over here that these are the urethane linkage, that is NHCOO, right? So basically, how does this urethane linkage is different from an amide linkage? Because amide linkage, there is only NH and CO. Okay, so it is CONH, but here it is NHCOO, right? So in this way, urethane linkage is different from a amide linkage. Okay, so when a diisocyanate reacts with a diol compound, it leads to the formation of a urethane linkage, and this NHCOO is called as a urethane linkage. Next, that is the most important reaction, that is the formation of a polyurethane. Okay, so this is a isocyanate pre-polymer. Okay, now what do you mean by a pre-polymer? So this itself is a long chain polymer. Okay, so this R is actually a long chain alkyl group. Okay, so basically it's a kind of polymer, and we are having NCO, that is isocyanate groups on both side of the alkyl group, right? So this is a kind of bifunctional group. So n moles, okay, so n moles of isocyanate pre-polymer reacts with n moles of polyol. Okay, now here the alkyl group is represented by R dash, and we are having OH and OH on the both sides, right? So this is a diol. Okay, now why we are calling it as a polyol? Because we don't know exactly that what is the nature of this R dash, whether it is CH2 or whether it is CH2 whole N, right? So nobody knows about the molecular weight of this R dash. That is why it is called as polyol. So when these two react together, N moles. So here also N moles of OH R dash OH reacts. So basically it polymerizes and it gives you RNHCO O. Okay, so you can just see over here, this is a urethane linkage. Okay, so in the previous slide also we have seen that NHCOO is the urethane linkage, and there is one more urethane linkage over here, right? Because it is a bifunctional compound, so this is also a urethane linkage. So that is NHCOO, right? So there are two urethane linkages being formed in a single repeating unit. So this itself is the repeating unit of the polyurethane, and n times it is going to get repeated, right? Again, I am trying to uh, repeat the things that why we are having two urethane linkages over here, because this isocyanate, that is diisocyanate, is a bifunctional polymer. Okay, this is a bifunctional pre-polymer, and this polyol is also a bifunctional alcohol. That is why it is getting polymerized on the both side of the alkyl group, right? Next is the manufacturing of polyurethane. Okay, so that we need to understand, it is very important to understand that how the polyurethane is getting manufactured. Okay, so the first point says the high reactivity of the isocyanate allows for the reaction injection molding and for the manufacture of rapid curing adhesives and coatings, right? The manufacturing process basically involves the two steps. First, a low molecular weight polyol is reacted with an excess isocyanate to form an isocyanate pre-polymer. Okay, so this is the pre-polymer. So how a pre-polymer is being formed? A low molecular weight polyol or diol is reacted with an excess of isocyanate to form an isocyanate pre-polymer. Right. After that, these pre-polymers are coupled with a diol during the molding step of the polymerization, right? So in the molding step we basically couple these pre-polymer isocyanate with a diol, and thus it is forming polyurethanes. Now in this way we are getting polyurethanes. Now how do we get foamed polyurethanes? Okay, foamed polyurethanes are those polyurethanes which are used for foam applications, right? So foam polyurethanes are produced by adding a small amount of water, right? And this isocyanate group reacts with the water to urea linkage, which releases carbon dioxide that acts as a blowing agent. Okay, so what happens? These polyurethanes they react with water, and ultimately it leads to the formation of urea and releases carbon dioxide. Okay, we'll see the reaction in the next slide. So this carbon dioxide acts as a blowing agent during the molding process of the polyurethanes. So you could see over here that there is an isocyanate over here. Okay, it reacts with the water and forms an amine and releases carbon dioxide. Okay, this isocyanate again reacts with this amine which is formed in the first step. Okay, and thus it forms the urea. Okay, so in this reaction, the net products which are getting formed are urea and carbon dioxide. Okay, and this carbon dioxide acts as the curing agent, or they act as a blowing agent in the molding process of the polyurethane foams. Now properties of polyurethanes. So the properties of polyurethane, it basically depends on the structure of the polymer backbone. Okay, so it depends that what kind of alkyl groups are there in the backbone, whether we are having any aromatic groups or whether we are having any aromatic groups or not in the backbone. So basically the physical and chemical properties of polyurethane, it depends upon the structure of the polymer backbone. Okay, so if an aromatic ring is actually replaced by a aliphatic group, then the properties also changes significantly. Second point says that these polyurethane it exhibit high strength, high rigidity, high flexibility and toughness. Okay. Also, majority of the polyurethanes they have good resistance to oil. So basically, they are oil resistant. They are also resistant to hydrocarbons, oxygen, and ozone. Right. So they cannot be easily oxidized. They cannot be easily attacked by ozone, and they cannot be easily attacked by other aromatic hydrocarbons. Third is there are some major drawbacks. So some of the major drawbacks of polyurethanes are their susceptibility to microbial attacks. Okay, so it can be easily attacked by microorganisms. Okay, and also they are easily discolored when they are exposed to ultraviolet light. Next is polyurethanes obtained from aromatic isocyanates and low molecular weight diols have high glass transition temperature and are also brittle, whereas polyurethanes obtained from aliphatic isocyanates and polymeric diols have much lower glass transition temperatures. Okay, so just try to understand this first point. So it says that polyurethanes which are obtained from aromatic isocyanates and low molecular weight diols, they have high glass transition temperature. So what do we have? What do we basically understand from high glass transition temperature? So when we say that high glass transition temperature, it means that polymer is more in the rubbery state, right? So polyurethanes which are obtained from aromatic isocyanates, uh, they are basically having high glass transition temperature and they are in brittle shape, right? Whereas polyurethane foams which are obtained from aliphatic isocyanates. Okay, so here in the main chain that R dash or R is basically an aliphatic group and not an aromatic group, and polymeric diols have low glass transition temperature, and as you know that when we are having a low Tg value, the polymer is basically more flexible, right? Now a majority of commercial polyurethanes are basically elastomers. Okay, it means what? That majority of the commercial polyurethanes are elastomers. It means that they are having elastic properties, right? And when a polymer can have elastic properties, when it is having a low glass transition temperature, right? When it is having a high glass transition temperature, it is in the glassy state, and when it is having a low glass transition temperature, it is more rubbery, more elastic, and more flexible. Okay, so they can be made without cross-linking the polymer chains. The high elastic network consisting of alternating flexible polyether blocks are rather short and hard urethane blocks, right? Just try to understand this thing. It says that the highly elastic network consisting of alternating flexible polyether blocks and rather short and hard urethane blocks. Okay, so when you see the structure of a polyurethane, there are two blocks. One is a hard block and one is a soft block. Okay, this soft block basically consists of the polyether or polyester, right? And the hard block consists of the aromatic urethane blocks. So this aromatic urethane block is basically hard, okay, and this polyester block is basically soft, and the elasticity is basically given by the soft block and not the hard block. That is why majority of the commercial polyurethanes are elastomer, because this soft block is actually greater as compared to the hard block. The next point says the urethane blocks associate to hard domains that are connected via hydrogen bonds. These domains act as physical crosslinks and provide a restorative force when the thermoplastic urethane elastomer is stretched, right? So the urethane blocks associate to hard domains that are connected via hydrogen bonds. Okay, now it means to say that there are two polyurethanes, okay, straight chain polyurethanes, and there is a strong hydrogen bond between adjacent chains. And due to this hydrogen bonds, there is basically a cross-linked structure of these polyurethanes, right? And due to which these crosslinks provides a restorative force when the thermoplastic is stretched, right? So it means that polyurethanes are having the elastic properties, but at the same time, there is a restorative force due to this physical crosslinks between adjacent polyurethanes. Now try to understand some of the commercial polyurethane prepolymers. Okay, so as we have already discussed that isocyanates acts as the prepolymer. So these are some of the important prepolymers that are used for the manufacturing of polyurethanes. The first one is toluene 2,4 diisocyanate. Okay, so you could see that it is saying that, so this is toluene, and at position 2 and position 4 we are having isocyanate group, and it is called as diisocyanate. Okay, so TDI means toluene diisocyanate, and then next is toluene 2,6 diisocyanates. Okay, so we are having toluene, okay, and at position 2 and position 6 or vice versa we are having the isocyanate group, so it is called as 2,6 TDI. Okay, so it is 2,6 toluene diisocyanate. Next is 1,4. Next is 1,4 phenylene diisocyanate. It means this is the typical phenylene ring. Okay, it is also called as MDI. Okay, in short, it is also abbreviated as MDI. So here, this is the first group. Okay, so in the 1,4 phenylene diisocyanate. Okay, so we are having two isocyanate groups. Okay, and we are having two phenylene groups. There is one phenylene group and there is one phenylene group. Okay, next is isophorone diisocyanate. It is also called IPDI. So here also you could see that it is a bifunctional isocyanate where we are having two isocyanate groups, NNCO and NCO. So these all three are basically aromatic diisocyanate. Okay, the last one, that is HDI, hexamethylene diisocyanate, is a aliphatic one. Okay, so there is no aromatic ring over here, and we are a total of having sorry. So we are having a total of 6 carbon atoms in the backbone, and there are two NCO groups, that is isocyanate. Okay, so basically, none of these commercial pre-polymers are manufactured in India. Okay, so the major actually they are getting manufactured in India, but not it's not an indigenous preparation. Okay, so Germany is the one of the most popular manufacturer of these pre-polymers, and there are companies like Bayer. So now Bayer is also called as Covestro, and I think everybody knows about BASF. So these are the two, like we could say that they are the heavyweights in the polymer industry. And Covestro and BASF, they manufacture this TDI and MDI, and Bayer, that is also not called as Covestro. Now they are manufacturing IPDI and HDI. Okay, in bulk. Now coming to applications, so the versatile urethane chemistry allows for the production of a wide range of products, including flexible and rigid foams, then solid elastomers, okay, then extrusion and injection molded parts, coatings, sealants, adhesives. Okay, so these are some of the major applications of these polyurethanes. Okay, next is flexible high resilience foam products include mattresses. Okay, so try to understand that polyurethane foams are one of the main raw materials in mattresses. So whatever mattress of Kurlon or maybe Sleepwell, whatever you use in your houses, they are having polyurethane as one of the major constituent, right? Next is upholstered furniture, carpet underlays, and auto parts like cushions, backs, and armrests. Try to understand cushions, backs, armrest. Also, everywhere you could see that there is either a hard foam or a soft foam. Okay, so all the foamy structures are basically made up of these polyurethane. So polyurethane is acts as a building block of the foams, whether it is a foam which we used in our house, whether it is a foam that we use in our seats in the cars, whether that foam it is used in the armrest of the car, right? So everywhere we are using polyurethanes as the main building block. Now other applications of rigid foam include insulation for the tanks, insulation for pipes, insulation for water heater, refrigerator, and freezers, right? So polyurethanes are having excellent insulating properties, and they are used for different applications. Some of the other examples of the polyurethane elastomers are durable elastomeric wheels and tires for skateboards. I think you know about skateboards. Okay, in Western countries it is very famous. That is skateboards, using skateboards. Then roller coasters. I think you have seen many videos where people are doing roller coaster rides. And then escalators. Okay, so escalators is also producing a heavy torque, right? So all the wheels and tires for these things are basically made up of solid polyurethane elastomers. Now, apart from this, elastomeric urethane also find uses in automotive industry. Some of the examples is that is used in bumpers, fenders, steerings, wheel steering, instrument and door panels, gasket for trunks, windows and windshields. Polyurethanes are also used for electrical potting, compound, adhesives, coating sealants, and so many things. And yes, for the most important thing, it is also used for the fabrication of a synthetic fiber that is called as spandex. Okay, that we are going to discuss in the next topic. Okay, so spandex is a basically it is a synthetic polyurethane fiber which is used for many which is used for making many important clothes for the sportswear. Okay, so many of the highly elastic sportswear are made up of this spandex fiber that is also called as polyurethane spandex. So now the next topic is that is polyurethane fibers, that is also commercially known as spandex. So what are these? So polyurethane fibers, sometimes called spandex or elastane, are synthetic fibers in which the fiber forming substance is a polymer consisting of at least 85% segmented polyurethane. Okay. Now try to understand that 85% of the spandex is made up of polyurethane, right? And polyurethane is having a peculiar property of high elasticity. That is why spandex fibers are basically used in making sportswear. Okay, for and normally these fibers are very costly because if you see that people who are doing sports activities, they require too much amount of stretching and they require too much amount of elasticity in their fibers. That is why we use spandex fiber. The fiber is produced by reacting a polyester with a diisocyanate. Okay, try to understand. We don't use here polyether. We use only polyester. So spandex is only produced when you react a polyester with a diisocyanate. Okay, spandex has elastomeric rubber-like qualities and it is very much durable. You can even use it for at least 6 to 7 years very easily. Okay. Next is it is even more durable than rubber and can be stretched more than 500% without breaking. Try to understand. It is so much stretchable that you can stretch 5 times more than normal stretch and it will not break. Okay, there will be no problem. You can, so that is why it is used for sportswear aggressively. Okay, it has good chemical resistance to many diluted acids and alkali, but also may damage the fiber. Okay, so if it gets react with acid and alkali, it may damage the fiber. Its strength is rather low when compared to most synthetic fibers. Okay, strength is low. Okay, try to understand, strength is low but elasticity is high, and its heat resistance can vary considerably depending upon the composition. Again, the resistance to heat, it again depends upon the composition, means how much amount of how much amount of polyurethane is there, how much amount of other additives are there. Again, so the heat resistance basically depends upon the composition or the constitution. The last one, the fiber has excellent resistance to mildew and does not shrink when exposed to water. Okay, so this is again water resistant. Okay, it even if it gets wet in the water, it can be soaked very easily and it can thus be used reuse. Okay. Next is some of the very important physical properties of polyurethane fiber, that is spandex, are what? First is tensile strength. So as we have already seen, it is having a poor tensile strength. The abrasion resistance having excellent. The absorbency, that is it is fair to good. The static resistance is good. The heat resistance is poor. Again we have seen the same thing in the previous slide. The wrinkle resistance, it is excellent. Resistance to sunlight, it is very good. It means that it will not wear and tear by the action of sun. Elasticity, excellent. Flame resistance, it burns slowly. Okay. Resilience, very good. Okay. So these are some of the important physical properties of spandex fiber. The last is application of polyurethane fibers. Okay, so thermoplastic polyurethane elastomers are molded and shaped into many different parts. Most of these elastomers can also be spun into fibers. Okay, so try to understand. So these polyurethane fibers or spandex, they can be molded and shaped into different parts. Okay, that is why it is used for making different types of sportswear. Okay, and try to understand the fact that spandex is predominantly used only for making sportswear and nothing else. Okay, it's a peculiar type of polyurethane fibers. Okay, it is not used for making foams. Okay, so that you should try to understand. Most of these elastomers can be easily spun into fibers and they are used for making elastic textiles. Try to understand. Elastic textiles means what? Sportswear comes under the category of elastic textiles. Okay. So such as what? Such as socks tops, brass, support hoses, weatherproof weatherproof clothing. Okay. Then swimwear. So normally swimmers, right? So swimmers basically swim and they require high flexibility clothes wear, right? So that is why. And other athletic apparel. It is also used for um, making running garments. Okay, people who are doing running activities, who are doing cycling, they also require maximum amount of stretch in their wear, right? So it is used for making athletic apparel. Okay, so thank you very much, and this is it for this video lecture. Thank you.